Hi friends, my name's host Eric, and I was talking with famous people. And today I'm going to be responding to a video made by LiJo called 4 Reasons People Don't Respect You. Well, one might call a TE user 4 answers to a question no one asked, especially when, though unnamed, the video is clearly directed at me. So apparently LiJo thinks that when I went and took to task a couple of idiots in her comments, that I felt disrespected. I didn't feel disrespected at all, okay? The individual in the comments said, I don't feel like it's respectful to the world for you to go through it stoned, quote unquote. Now, note, I don't doubt that LiJo will and legitimately claim that to some extent her comments are directed not at me, but at the commenters. Nevertheless, it's a lot of this stuff could easily enough be applied to a lot of people like me, even if it's not directed directly at me. So let's go through the wrongnesses of her video and discuss them. First, let me point out a little disrespect here in the corner. You can see I've had the perfect slogan for LiJo's fake psychologist office. Mind your mind journey's itinerary. It's disrespectful because it makes fun of an expression that she uses seriously. Okay, so there's a good example of analysis of disrespect. It actually is very, it's quite concrete, isn't it? So let's take a look at this. Her first of her 4 reasons is environment. What's the intention for the space? Her basic message being here, don't talk about doing mushrooms at work. Don't wear your clown suit at a funeral. Not a bad heuristic in general, but I would point out that ownership makes heuristics in general bad. So, for example, if you're at my funeral and you don't show up in that clown suit, my dead self might be disappointed. If you're at my job, if you're working for me, I don't care if you're talking about that, as long as you're not talking about it around the kids. Now, that doesn't mean that she's not to some extent right, okay? What is the intention for the space? The intention for the space, though, is not the only thing that controls how people ought to behave. A space may be intended for something, but an individual ought be true to more than the protocols regarding the space. There are other considerations in life besides that. So let's look at the next slide. You should ask yourself, what's actually relevant to the job? What's the intention of the space? Okay, let's say it's being a debate coach. What's relevant to that job? Well, not what I'm wearing, not my clothes. Also, compare against alt's not ideal. Because what this means is you get in life a bag that's full of things. So in other words, when you get me, you get some things in the bag that you maybe don't like, but you also get the best debate coach who wins, and the kids love him, right? So the thing is, you might say, well, Eric, why don't you just be even better and dress nice too? Well, if I were that kind of mindset, I wouldn't be the best debate coach. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It goes with a cognitive function stack that I'm particularly brilliant at certain things and, as a consequence, necessarily bad at other things. Let's go on to the next slide. She says her second reason is time. Are you respecting time? Well, she highlights how time is money, basically. Time is the most important resource we have, and if you're wasting someone else's time, that's a problem. The thing is, you can't really waste someone else's time unless you're violating their rights, Nothing compels you to sit there and listen to me. I'm not going to chase you down the street if you think I'm wasting your time right now. For people who think I'm wasting their time in this video, they've already left it and turned it off, and that's their prerogative. So let's look a little bit more deeply at this question. You got others' time, you got your own time, and you got God's time. What does it mean by God's time? I mean, it's sort of a general term meaning if you believe that you're destined for something in life, or destined for more than this, whatever it is, or something like that, then in that instance, you're talking about what could generally be called sort of God's time or larger purpose time. Okay, so some people don't believe they have any destiny or that they're perfectly comfortable as they are, and so it boils down to others' time or your time. Others' time is others' time literally only when they're paying you to spend your time like that. But again, I refer you back to the alts. So do I pull bong rips while I'm coaching Jeffrey? Yes. Do I turn off the camera before I do? Yes. As far as respecting the environment and the ownership issue, what didn't I do during that LiJo video because it was on her channel? I didn't pull bong rips on camera. I turned the camera off to pull the bong rips. It did not disrupt the flow of the conversation. I did it when she was talking. I can listen just fine. It was no more of an interruption than if I were smoking a cigarette or drinking a drink of orange juice, So the fact is, there is a matter of respect for the environment, but it's respect for the fact that the environment is not yours. The thing is, talking with family people is my environment. So you don't get to have an opinion about whether I'm respecting my own environment or not by smoking pot. And if you think you do, then, well, that's why my foot is up your ass. Now, I don't think LiJo says that. Keep in mind here, there's a couple of different things going on. There's her commenters who were saying, basically, is that the guy who smokes pot while typing people? If so, I'm not comfortable with this. I don't like this. Of course, they don't even know if it weren't me, would they like me differently? Of course, they've got the actual data in front of them, right? They can watch the video of me talking. They can see if I'm making sense or if they like me or whatever. But instead, they say, no, I don't want to experience something and make judgments on it based on its merits. I want to have this stupid heuristic that allows me to make judgments that are wrong and wrongfully dismiss people. Does this mean I feel disrespected? No. It means, once again, does a firefighter feel disrespected when there's a fire? No. He just understands it's his job to put it out, right? Same thing here. Your word. Do you believe that you keep your word? So this is a really tricky and interesting point. From her, as she discusses it in her video here, your word means things you say you're going to do and whether or not you follow through on them. Incredibly limited frame of reference. More important regarding your actual trustworthiness, far more important, are all four of these. Do you lie about the past? Do you intentionally misrepresent things that have happened before? Do you convey false intentions? Do you knowingly say, I'm going to do something while you know actually you're not going to? Do you do things you said you wouldn't? Now that one's important. If you promise you're not going to cheat and you do, that is vastly worse than if you promise you're going to bring milk home on the way home from work and you forget. Do you keep secrets, denying others complete information? If you think privacy is a good thing because it gives you an advantage, you're using other people as a means to an end. To a TI friend person like me, that's wicked. You mentioned it even in the video we did yesterday that you're like, but it's efficacious. And someone's like, yeah, but it's wicked. That's actually a more important question, right? Now, I'm not going to deny that she has a point here but even in that point, there are two subsets to it. How accurately do you predict your own future behavior is one of them, versus do you default on contracts? So understanding that when you're engaged in casual conversation with someone and you're having chat about what you might do, is a lot less, should be perceived as a lot less binding than a formal contract. So I'm not likely to enter into any formal contracts very easily, or any informal contracts for that matter. I am likely to casually talk about things that I might do or that I am going to do. If I am repeatedly saying I am going to do something, it will get done eventually. I may not be on the timetable I say, but it'll get done. Otherwise, once I did, it took me a long time to get to this part where I said I am going to do this. So believe me, it's going to get done. I was very hesitant to say I am going to do this about everything. So if I do, it will eventually get done. Now, occasionally that's not the truth. Occasionally, it's just my nature gets the better of me, and I'm an action type. I'm not a type that cares so much about having a plan in which everything I do produces outcomes that link to some goal or something. And that's perfectly acceptable alternate worldview. Now let's look at this one. Worth. Are you seeking to discover the worth in others? Well, what exactly does this mean? Are you learning what you can from them? I try to. I'm not great at that. I'm more because why? I'm an extroverted intuitor. So that means I put out ideas rather than particularly expect others to produce good ideas that I then gather, right? I expect myself to generate them myself. My father was always telling me when I was a kid, stop trying to reinvent the wheel, Eric. Well, that's wise if you're in a TE frame, but it's not wise if you're in an NE frame because we are fundamentally trial and error people. In other words, by trying to reinvent the wheel, I may end up inventing something actually useful and good and desirable. But we won't know how or why until some accidents happen. It's not something that can be planned. Are you remaining silent or pulling your punches? Is that really treating people with respect? So, in other words, if I were to just smile and shake my head in private but not say any of this shit in public, would I be treating LiJo with more respect? Not from my perspective. I'd be treating her with no respect at that point. I'd be trying to FE her. Like she, I think, tried to FE me. Well, that, again, I might be somewhat reductive here. I think there's another slide here. No, there's not. So never mind, I wasn't being reductive. Environment. Are we back to the beginning? Yeah, I think we're back to the beginning. Yeah, okay. So let's hide those. I've actually got more slides here. Regarding respect, respecting the environment. Let me move this over. Oops. What is this? Slideshow 2? No, this is slideshow. Really, you don't respect environments. You express respect or disrespect for people. And if you disrespect an environment, you're disrespecting the person who owns that environment or has ownership of it for the time being anyway. Someone expresses disrespect or respect for you. These are the two possible ways that respect really plays out. When is disrespecting someone appropriate? Is it always inappropriate to be disrespectful? Let's find out. Earned shame should be incurred. If somebody does something shameworthy, shame them. Frame revision is needed. In this case, it has been normalized that it is acceptable to be racist against pot smokers, basically. I don't care. It's like nobody dares say any of this shit to me. I don't worry about any of this shit because if somebody wants to bring their wrongness up to me, I just think, oh great, because earned shame should be incurred and frame revision is needed. So my point is, I won't allow your bullshit to be normalized, not because it's disrespectful to me, but because it's fundamentally wicked. How should you react when someone disrespects you? Well, that really depends, right? If they just disrespect me by saying something like, you know, he's ugly and just always thinks he's right, I just won't bother responding because it's not an idea worth responding to, right? He's not really disrespecting me. He's just revealing that he's scared by my superiority. So the key thing here is sometimes people are just wrong and are accidentally sort of disrespecting you because they don't understand the world. May or may not have been the case with Homie and the commenters, you know. Maybe they just internalized all the anti-drug propaganda and actually think that they're right about it and just using this old heuristic to dismiss a real, rich, and fully involved human being as something less than that. But it's quite possible, though, that it's somebody who is doing it out of spite, which is to say, they don't like me, they don't like my attitude, they don't like my certainty, they don't like videos like this. And so here's an opportunity to shit on Eric without accessing the fact that, boy, he sure is being personable and enjoyable in this video here, that if I were watching it and responding to its content on its merits, I would have nothing negative to say about the man. And lastly, don't forget to mind your mind journey's itinerary. Because if you aren't using this second to do something purposeful that you already knew ahead of time from before was gonna be purposeful because it's part of a larger plan, you're wasting your fucking life. No, that's not the case at all. Don't listen to TE people. Suck it, TE.